let's start from when they're born. I mean, I was the youngest of six. My dad and both my brothers played professional baseball. My brother Tim and I both went to school on scholarships, which was interesting when you talk about playing sports. And when you're the youngest, you're always playing kids that are 4, 5, 6 years older than you. I lived that my whole life. But talk about I think it's really interesting, the town and the family part of it.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head, and obviously it didn't work out in your case, but in most cases, as you said, if you're younger, basically you play up with older siblings, and if you're a 5-year-old playing with a 7-year-old, you probably can't outrun them.
Right.
You can't out-muscle them. So the only way to keep up actually is with sort of skill and subtlety and stuff, and then you basically reach a level when you're fully mature. Where physically you're not disadvantaged anymore, and you've actually, because of being the underdog, they call it the underdog effect. So because of being the underdog, you've built these advantages in other ways, and then when you can marry those with kind of being physically the same or even stronger than your opponent, suddenly you've got a big advantage. But actually, we can kind of create that underdog effect in different ways. I think that's a really important kind of lesson from the book. So we talked with Elena Del Don, who, as you said, is the best free throw shooter of all time, one of the best basketball players of all time. And she's born September 5th, so she's old for her school year. She was always incredibly tall for her age. So she, basically could bully opponents on the court from a young age, which is actually not great for your development, because you reach a point when suddenly you're playing with players who are the same height as you, and you haven't developed those other skills. So actually, when she was 11, she was playing with kids 5 years older than her. She also played a lot with boys growing up as well. So that kind of forced her to develop those other skills, and also the kind of mental attributes, the resilience, the kind of learning from failure. Because I think as a kid, if you win all the time, that's actually not good for your development. You often learn more from failure. And you learn from kind of being thrown into new situations and having new variables. So that's a really important lesson from the book. And to go back to what you said about towns is this amazing statistic, which is that if you're from a US town of between 50 and 100,000, you have 15 times more chance of becoming a pro athlete, 15 times, than if you're from an area more than 100,000 or less than 50,000. That's an insane advantage. And what that relates to really is those are kind of mid-sized towns, and they're a sweet spot really, which is they have good enough facilities, good enough competition, but they don't suffer from the disadvantages of size, which is that you kind of get lost. So in bigger cities, kids drop out more frequently from sport because they kind of get lost from the system. Plus they have longer travel time, and also have less informal play. So parents need to be a bit more relaxed. It's a bit easier for kids to have informal play when they're in these smaller areas. And informal play is such a big part of how you develop skills. So we talked to the NBA, and they said how kids who've played more street basketball, that gives them more adaptability and kind of the ability to think for themselves on the spot, and that's such a crucial factor. So certainly one of the big lessons is, although yes, you can gain a lot from formal training, and that is important, but if you lose the informal play, you lose a bit of magic really. And actually we see again and again, informal play is so important in an athlete's ultimate journey. And there was a study of Premier League academies in football, in the English Premier League, and they basically showed of players who were released aged 16 and players who went on to get contracts, there was no difference in the amount of formal training they'd done. But the difference was the kids who got contract had done more informal play, more street sport. But that we see that again and again throughout sport, that the value of that informal play, because it gives you the ability to think for yourself and to problem solve, because it's not everything that can be solved by a coach telling you what to do. Ultimately, to become a top athlete, it's about adapting. And so the more informal play you can do, that's so important.